Everybody. It's really wonderful to see so many people here from so many different places. I'm Donna Maya, one of the order members at the San Francisco Buddhist Center, and I and my compatriots in the Green Sangha Affinity Group are putting on this evening in honor of Earth Day, which is tomorrow. So we have a wonderful program lined up for you all. I'm going to very, very briefly give you a rundown of what's going to happen in the evening. I will introduce people as they come along and you'll get the full instructions for anything. So first, what we're going to do is we're going to actually have a wonderful performer, Lyla June, to perform some music and some poems for us. After that, we're going to have an introduction to the Rainforest Foundation, which is the foundation that we are doing this fundraiser for in honor of Earth Day. And we will introduce the Director of Strategic Impact, Kim Chaix. Then we'll have a meditation session for about 25 minutes. We'll have a break for about 10 minutes. We'll have Minal, who will read some poetry. And following that, we will have Marta and Tim from our Missoula Sangha, who will give us some very interesting updates on farming and gardening. And also Christine from Vancouver. We will have some poetry reading from MJ and John, and a few details at the end. So that is our evening for tonight. So I'd like to introduce Lyla June. She is an Indigenous musician, scholar, and community organizer of the Diné, Navajo, Tsetsahetsahi, Cheyenne, and European lineages. Her dynamic multi-genre presentation style has engaged audiences across the globe toward personal, collective, and ecological healing. She blends studies in human ecology at Stanford, graduate work in Indigenous pedagogy, and the traditional worldview she grew up with to inform her music, perspectives, and solutions. She's currently pursuing her doctoral degree, focusing on Indigenous food systems and revitalization. I'm pleased to present Lyla June.
Hello. So happy to be here. So grateful for the invite. So happy to share a little space with all of you in this interesting time that we find ourselves in. And before I start, I just want to introduce myself in my mother's language, which is Denebizad. So Yat Eshik E Auto Shidene She Nanisht Ejit Hachi in Shlondon Haskai Dene Bashishi Ashin Hidashiche Bilagana Edashanella Taos New Mexico Date Na Sha Aquit Ego Deneast Aninishlo. So what I just said is greetings where the sky and the earth meet, my kin and my people. I'm from the Zuni division of the Tachitni clan of the Dene Nation. We are also incorrectly known as Navajo. And then I said my father's mother's clan is of the Cheyenne Nation. My mother's father is of the Salt clan of the Dene. And my father's father is of the European clans, as far as I know. And I hail from a little town called Taos, New Mexico. And in that manner, I present myself as a Dene woman. Just really grateful to be here. I guess I'm going to sing one song and also read one poem in the spirit of your gathering. And this song was actually by request from one of your organizers. So I haven't sang it in a while. I had to practice it earlier today. So it was really nice to get back in touch with this song. It's called Mamulad, and Mamulad means motherland in Welsh. And it's really to honor my Indigenous ancestors from Europe. and also in honor of the women who were burned alive and drowned alive as witches, who were carriers of that indigenous knowledge. And I think in light of Earth Day, it's important for all of us to get in touch with our indigenous roots, no matter where we're from, because those are the principles and practices of those ancestors that are going to guide us to being connected to the sanctity of the earth and the sanctity of women, which by all accounts is fundamental to being a sustainable society. So here we go. "6 million women thrown to the flames. The library is burning. I'll remember their names. The first colonization of the human race didn't happen in America. It happened in the place of Mom. Mamulad, mother country, Magyarország, the people's land, Nasha Zemlya, the people's soil. I hear you calling. We've been afraid to look at the past and see the truth that's there. But take my hand, let's walk the land. Now you don't have to be scared. There's an ancient motherland that we have forgotten. And great-grandmothers burned at the stake for holding the earth in their hands. For holding the earth in their hands. For holding the earth in their hands. Persecuted as witches, warlocks and killers. But these were not evil people. These were Europe's healers. These were Europe's healers. They were healers. And I descend from healers. And this old heart of mine, it weeps away for all of our ceremonies growing up in flames. But feeling is healing, and these tears are falling like rain. Yes, feeling is healing. This is why we remember their names. Yes, feeling is healing. This is how I wash away the pain. So let it rain on this land. My mother's medicine lives in the earth, rising from the ashes as we remember. I can hear her song running through my veins as my brothers blow on embers of old bard stories. Old bard stories. I will place my feet in the Tuscan streams to mend the tattered edges of my father's dreams. My father's dreams. I will not choose war. I will choose peace. And honor the ancestors that live inside of me. Live inside of me. Live inside of me. Live inside of me. Hey, yeah. Honor what lives inside of us. So that song was a song that came out of a lot of research about Europe. And Europe before it was even called Europe. There's one line that says, "As my brothers blow on embers of old bard stories." And the bards, if you might remember, are the ones who were the keepers of the stories in Scotland, in Indigenous Scotland. And when the colonizers came to Scotland, their first order of business was to first kill the bards and then bury them face down so their stories would die with them. So the British Crown was very instrumental in the near destruction of bardic culture. And yeah, just thinking about the parallels actually between Indigenous peoples and European peoples. And we both had our languages prohibited as late as the 1930s. If you were caught speaking Welsh in school, you would get a block of wood tied around your neck that had the letters WN written on it, and that stood for Welsh not. And the only way you could get this block of wood off of your neck is if you caught another kid speaking Welsh. And it's really similar to what happened to my Dene grandmother in boarding schools in New Mexico. She said anytime a kid was caught speaking Denebazad, they would have to write 100 times, "I will only speak English, I will only speak English, I won't speak English." So another parallel is disease epidemics. You know, about 98% of indigenous peoples of this continent were wiped out, mostly due to disease, infectious epidemics. It would blow through whole villages, and all that would be left is a few children. Whole cities, really. We had more than villages here, we had cities. And similarly, the Black Death or the bubonic plague wiped out about a third of Europe overnight, which is a big trauma that we're still healing from. And so in any case, I just saw how we're actually quite similar. And a lot of the violence that was committed on Indigenous Europeans was then exported and mimicked on Indigenous peoples in the quote unquote Americas. So yeah, I could go on and on. But the last thing I'll say is that they did find a clay figure in the soil in Germany back in 2009. And it was a figure of a woman. And it is thought to represent that culture's honoring of the feminine, the goddess culture, and the culture's honoring of the earth. And they radiocarbon dated this figurine, and it was 40,000 years old. So I believe that is the time that our ancestors as Europeans are beckoning us to a deeper time frame. Not the time of Europe that dominates our understandings, like Napoleon, King Louis, those things. And I think that goes for all of us, no matter who we are, whether we descend from Africa or Asia or Australia or Europe or this continent. It's we all have really ancient societies. And I think the older the society doesn't necessarily mean more primitive. I would argue that America is the most primitive civilization to ever walk the face of the planet, for a lot of reasons, but I won't get into that. So, okay, I'll do a poem and then I'll hand it back to y'all. So thankful. Thanks for letting me have a few minutes. And blessings to your community and the work that you all do. Trying to think which poem to do. I'm feeling called to do this poem called God is the Water. Okay, here we go. When I close my eyes at night, I can feel the rock being cut open by water. I hear a grandfather's song, and it sounds like sand walking down the river bottom. And in this song, they talk about how even the mighty canyon walls were carved by meandering streams. Beneath the gentle waters, there are people, not people like you and I, stone people. And when I close my eyes at night, I am one of them. And over lifetimes, the river courses over me until I am polished and smooth. She teaches me about patience and forgiveness. She teaches me how to be gentle, yet persistent. And in her language of trickles and bubbles, she speaks to me. And she says, journeys. Journeys, take them, but try not to forget who you are along the way. I have nothing for you but these words. So place them in your pocket, and I will see you again. When you arrive at the ocean's throne as 1,000,000 kernels of sand. Her voice hums in my blood, quiet as a stream in the night. And it is this song about how we are all so loved. The eagles dip their talons into her soft body and pull from it a fish, a flesh meal for their children. She sings this song with them, and it sounds like feathers cutting into the sky. And it is a song about how even hatred will surrender to wonder. She's breaking my heart apart like a stubborn granite puzzle of problems. And even my most hard doubts and sorrows give way to that infinite grace. And I didn't know it, but apparently grace comes in the form of a raging river and rips away everything you think you own, all the blame and all the shame, and replaces it with a weightlessness so profound that you can't not cry. Tears of absolute praise, and run all around the riverbanks, shouting to the cattails and the willows and the trout about the truth of beauty, about the truth of a creator that breathes through the trees, truth of a creator that weaves winter from water and night, truth of a creator that weaves bodies from dust and light and carries us down the river of life over and over and over again through many iterations and incarnations until we finally understand the meaning of love, until we finally understand the meaning of forever. Forever. In the language of the stones, there is no word for regret. There is only the complete understanding of what it means to be a beloved son or daughter. We are the rocks, and Creator, she is the water. Thank you for letting me share that. Prayers are with you all, and I'm really grateful that y'all allowed me to be here with you all. And may you have just a most wonderful event.
Thank you so much, Lyla June. That was wonderful. Yeah. You go in beauty.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we're going to change pace a little bit. This is going to be a little more discursive, and I'd like to introduce the Rainforest Foundation Director of Strategic Impact, Kim Chaix.
Thank you so much for having me, and Lyla June. Wow, what can I say? It's it's a tough act to follow. I think we had the pleasure of having you about 9 months ago on an event that we organized in the middle of the pandemic. This was on June 21st, the summer solstice. We organized an event to support the indigenous people of the tropical belt of the planet who were facing very difficult time. And as we all know, as Lyla has mentioned, they have often been the victim of the worst impacts of disease and neglect and oppression and the pandemic that has befallen the indigenous people. And in particular, I'm thinking of Central and South America, where we work, has had a disproportionate impact on indigenous people who science is shown us are the best protectors of the forest, these tropical forests that we know to be account for about a third of the solution to the climate crisis that we face. So we need to keep these forests standing, and we need to make sure that the indigenous people who are the best keepers of the forest, again, remain healthy and remain able to protect their forests for the benefit of all of us, no matter where we are. I'm in New York, I'm in Brooklyn. I'm calling in from Brooklyn and New York, but I grew up in Nicaragua, so I have strong roots to the indigenous culture there. And here in New York, we had the opportunity to have our office. We work here at the invitation of the historical Lenape people who inhabited the region. They have come and allowed us to work and do what we do here in Brooklyn. But so I just wanted to thank you all for having me and for having chosen Rainforest Foundation as the beneficiary of this event. It means a lot to us to have been selected. And I think there are a number of things that connect us, that connect you to indigenous people, that connect the Buddhist faith to the faith of indigenous people, which is at its heart a vision an understanding of nature and the role it plays in governing every aspect of our lives. So that this is a very, we don't often get a chance at Rainforest Foundation to talk about the role of faith and belief in how everything is tied together. So this is a real treat to be able to be with you and try to find those connections between you wherever you are and the people who live in the forest, who live and breathe and depend on the forest for every aspect of their lives. They and without them, we would certainly not have the amount of forests, tropical forests that we have today. And in this, we know one thing for sure is that in this decade, this is the decade that we have to go all in, and we are going all in to protect the forest. So I had prepared a brief few slides to share with you, just to explain what it is we do, and how your support would help advance our mission. And if I'm allowed to share my screen, progress, I think, for all of us, and I think we've all been here before. So yeah, essentially, so now we're going to move a little bit away from Lyla's very spiritual message and warm and cozy and cosmic vision, and to something a little bit more practical here. Rainforest Foundation was founded 30 years ago by this guy on the left that some of you may recognize. His name is Sting. He is a British musician. 30 years ago, he was on tour in Brazil, and not quite sure how, but ended up, I think they had time off during their tour, and he went to visit a indigenous group of people known as the Kayapo. And he fell in love with the Kayapo. He met the chief, that's Chief Raoni on the right on the screen. And Chief Raoni at the time was fighting to have his territory, his land recognized as indigenous territory by the state, and was having difficulties. And that meant that without recognition of their territory was open to exploitation and plundering and invasions by outsiders. So Sting said, hey, I'll see what I can do. And so he went and visited and discovered that the best way to protect the rainforest, remember, this was circa 1988 when the discussion around deforestation was a topic that was in the news. And he said, Sting discovered that the best way to protect the forest is to make sure that indigenous people had the rights to the land, the titles to the land, so that because they knew the land best, and they were tremendous protectors of the forest. This, where you see in this slide, it says Xingu Indigenous Park. This is, as it's indicated, a snapshot on the left, 1994, what it looked like. The red dots are invasions and deforested areas. And the panel on the right, 2010, shows how the park, which was demarcated as a result of this partnership between Sting and Raoni and the pressure that they put on the government, you can see how dramatic the difference is, how stark the difference is between territories that are protected, that are controlled, and that are owned by indigenous people versus the other land. So this is at the heart of what we do, is ensure and support indigenous people in the tropical belt in their efforts to protect their territory. I think this slide speaks for itself, why it's so important. I want to give you a zoom out a little bit. If you can see my cursor on the bottom right of your screen, that's the Xingu Park. If you can see this right angle here, I think you can see it here as well. So that gives you an idea of where we are focusing on in the Amazon. So this is, the Amazon. As you all know, it's the biggest tropical forest and 10% of the world's biodiversity. There's so many reasons, obvious reasons, that I don't need to explain to you why it is so important to life on Earth and why we are really in a battle to protect it. The panel on the bottom right shows the different categories of protected areas. You'll see that the light blue is the land that is recognized as indigenous land. About 2/3 of the Amazon is in Brazil. As you know, Brazil is right now experiencing some very difficult times with a president who is intent on opening up indigenous lands to all sorts of exploitation, and who also believes that the best service that he can provide to the indigenous people in the Amazon is to bring them into the fold of quote unquote civilization. So this is not a good moment in Brazil. Briefly, the main drivers of deforestation are coca growing, timber logging, mining on the bottom right. You can see the mining pits. And, I chose this photo of this boy because oftentimes, as is the case with, for example, poaching or other activities that have an impact on wildlife and forests, it's the poorest people who are made to carry out these activities because of very limited economic opportunities. And ultimately, what we want to do is make sure that the forest is more valuable and generates income to improve the livelihoods of people. And that is something that we're working on. And I'm not going to go into it now because we don't have a lot of time. This is where we work in these countries. We work directly in this country, but with partners. We work across all the Amazon countries and in Africa and also in Asia and Indonesia. But here at Rainforest Foundation US, we have programs in these countries right now that are in operation. And what do we do? So I mentioned earlier the importance of securing land rights for indigenous. That is the cornerstone. It's like your house or your car. If you don't have a title to it, how can you prove that it belongs to you and that you can defend it and protect it? So we partner with indigenous people, make sure that they go through support them through the tedious process of obtaining title and helping them manage their territories, support them in the advocacy efforts, and once the organizations have arrived to a place where they have recognition or title, and then becomes the important part, which is monitoring the land, because okay, you have title, but how do you prevent the land from deteriorating or degrading from outside forces? So I want to just briefly take you into the territorial monitoring icon here on the bottom right and tell you what it is that we do. Our flagship program is actually very exciting. It's about providing indigenous people with the technology, the tools that they need to identify threats to their territories and take action. And these tools are in the form of satellite images, drones, GPS enabled cell phones. And so they'll get an alert from a satellite that's flying above the Amazon and says, hey, in that corner of your territory, there is something strange going on. You should go investigate it. And they'll go on foot patrols and investigate to see who is doing what. And that turns into action and the expulsion of invaders. And this tool, there's a scientific study that is coming out in a week or so by major academic institutions in the US, randomized control trials, that shows that this methodology dramatically cuts down on deforestation. And so our goal is to accelerate the deployment of this tool across the Amazon and across all territories where there are indigenous people who have already said that they want this tool. And it's cost effective. This is cheaper than many other tools that are being promoted out there for the protection of the forest. So, just briefly, so they'll get the alert. The alert is then processed by the community. The community goes and investigates, and then they report back to the leaders, and they say this is happening. And then the leaders, the community as a whole, determines what actions to take. And so,
sorry, I have to interrupt. I have the terrible role of timekeeper.
Oh, sorry.
But I also want to just say it's incredible what you're doing, and especially the role of technology in it. And we're very excited that we can be a small part by helping bring funds to what you're doing.
Yeah.
So if you could make
I'm
pretty much okay. Sorry.
I'm done. So essentially, this methodology works, and the forest is being replanted in places where it's been taken back from those who would seek to destroy it, and it's being replanted and rebuilt. And so that is what I can tell you. And if you have any questions, by all means, feel free to reach out anytime. That's my mobile phone. You can call me, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you for having me, and I hope that you have a great rest of your event. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This has been fascinating to hear and see the slides. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
All right. So we're going to do a meditation, which I will lead us through. It's called Upeksha Bhavana, or the cultivation of great equanimity. And this will be about 25 minutes long, and then we'll have a break. I will, as you settle comfortably into a posture, sitting or lying or standing, that you find amenable to concentrate in. I am going to just give you a little bit of an introduction to what Upeksha Bhavana actually is. Upeksha, the great equanimity, rests on a firm foundation of metta. Metta is the ground out of which springs the other Brahma Viharas, the divine abodes. Karuna, great compassion. Mudita, great joy in the joy of others. And Upekkha, great equanimity. In response to seeing or experiencing dukkha, the unsatisfactory, the painful in life, metta blossoms into compassion, karuna. When it meets happiness and good fortune of anyone in the world, metta blooms with joy in the joy of others, mudita. And since our worldly experience is so mixed in worldly life, metta takes all of it, the suffering and the joyful, and flowers the great equanimity, able to hold everything and anything lightly and with great sensitivity and attentiveness. Not blown about by the worldly winds, we become in ourselves the still calm point around which everything can whirl and spin. And yet we can remain imperturbable, steady, a resource for the good in all beings. we ourselves become the fruit of practice that nourishes all life. So take a moment now to settle deeper into your posture. And in this first stage, let's have metta for yourself. You are here, seated, practicing, and that sure counts for something good, no matter how you are feeling at the moment. However you are feeling now, feel your contact with where you are sitting or laying down. Feel the great mass of the planet beneath you, which supports all that you are sitting on. The earth supports you gladly. Gravity is the earth pulling you into her constant embrace. Next, consider an ordinary place that you know of, but not in detail. A city park, someone's ordinary backyard with typical landscaping. It's not bad, not particularly beautiful, it's neutral. And yet there are plants there that absorb CO2 and release water vapor and oxygen. Birds and insects and small mammals find food and shelter and reproduce there. People also come and go out of this area. Think of them with friendliness. Reflect that they live their lives and die as creatures do, with both pleasures and suffering. Hold these both gently in your heart, the pleasure and the suffering. Hold that with kindness and care, recognizing that this is how things are. Now think of a place on this earth that brings you joy. Think of the beauty of it, the times you spent there, a place that powerfully draws your heart. Recall as many details about that place and your experience in it, the fragrances of the plants, the angle of the sun, all the sounds that are there. Enjoy these things again mentally. Savor how this dwelling there has nourished you, freshened your outlook, given you the gift of spaciousness. Recall that all the little lives there, plant, fungi, insects, tiny animals, birds, all live and die, suffer and have pleasure. Hold all of this in your heart with kindness and care, recognizing that this is how things are. Now bring to mind another place, one which isn't so lovely, perhaps, one that may be strewn with trash, fouled with bad water, maybe covered in cement. But consider the plants there who are struggling but still growing. All sorts of beings can live in places that may not be beautiful. It may be an ordinary urban street full of asphalt, paint, buildings, not much to see. But try to cast an eye of friendliness on this scene, where weeds may be growing, flowering, pushing up through the cracks in the cement, algae coating rocks along a creek, insects that crawl and fly, people coming and going, cars, trucks, justice and injustice. All manner of things are happening, all sorts of life coming and going. All these signs that life still emerges and grows and tries to heal the land and the waters. All who live here, great and small alike, also live and die, suffer and have pleasure. Hold all of this too in your heart with kindness and care, recognizing that this is how things are. Finally, bring all of these places and all of these beings, including yourself, together in a great circle of friendliness, care, and concern. We are all born, live, and finally die, experiencing our lives as they are, as they go. Pleasure, pain, beauty, and ugliness, all of it, the great circle of life, all the coming, staying for a little while or a little while longer, and then each of us go. Hold all of this in wonder, in kindness, in care. Recognize and savor. This is how things are. May all beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all beings make progress on the path to goodness. And may all beings in time come to abide in the bliss of liberation. righty. Well, here we are. Back for more. So yes, we've got some very, very lovely things about to happen. First up will be some poetry read by Minal Hajratwala. She goes by they and she. She's the founder and guiding coach of the Unicorn Authors Club, helping BIPOC authors and allies who really mean it to finish their books. She started coaching authors after the publication of her first book, Leaving India, My Family's Journey from 5 Villages to 5 Continents, which was called Incomparable by Alice Walker and Searingly Honest by the Washington Post. It won a PEN Award USA Award, an Asian American Writers Workshop Award, a Lambda Literary Award, and the California Book Award. She's the author of a poetry collection, Bountiful Instructions for Enlightenment, and a travel guidebook, Moon Fiji. As a journalist, she is an editor at large at Zocalo Public Square, ran the Sunday Perspective section of the San Jose Mercury News, and was a National Arts Journalism Program Fellow at Columbia University. In 2010 through 2011, she was a Fulbright Senior Fellow in Mumbai, where she edited a groundbreaking anthology, Out, Stories from the New Queer India. So Minal, so glad to have you here.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Well, much respect to Lyla and Kim for such beautiful words, and thank you to Mary Salome and the other organizers in the Sangha for putting this together. I have been very lucky to spend time in forests, including rainforests, in my life and to write there. And so I thought today that I would share and start with a poem written in a forest, which is actually under quite a lot of danger. This poem is called Grief Residency, and I wrote it a couple of years ago while I was on a writer's residency at Armstrong Woods near the Russian River, which, as some of you may know, suffered quite a lot of damage in last year's wildfires. And I was lucky to be there during a period when I was recovering from a series of personal griefs. And I think that there are so many amazing things about our forests, but one is that they have this incredible capacity to sustain us and the wildernesses of our own emotional lives and our communities. So this poem is about that. Grief Residency. When suddenly the two intersect, the great love and the great sorrow, you understand that all your life you've been walking toward this crossroads. When you thought you walked the road of passion, when you thought you walked the road of pain, when you thought you walked the road of rage, when you thought you walked the road of transcending all roads, you were aimed like an arrow under this bright half moon from a God's bow to this very crossroads. And not one thing in the world has paused for your suffering. Bees inscribe their hexagrams in wax, snake skins shatter under boots, wild jasmine climbs the old prune racks in fragrant wise. Borders whisper, I will keep you safe. Rats hoard fuzz and tumbleweed in the barn. Everything wants a nest. The Zen teacher asks, does this cat have Buddha nature? And as the student hesitates, cleaves the cat in half. So the Zen tradition, which I mainly practiced in, has these koans, as you probably know, and they can be quite tough. um, and one of the qualities of forests, including rainforests, is that they can also be quite tough to inhabit in our soft city bodies. um, the most numerous citizens of rainforests are, of course, the insects. And so this is a poem that I wrote when I was in a place with a lot of insects, and it's called Insect Koan. It's from my book, which has this beautiful, my book is called Bountiful Instructions for Enlightenment. And the book, I just want to share this image, is this beautiful image by a Tibetan diaspora artist named Aung Sharin Serpa. And it has basically a bunch of Buddha parts in a specimen jar and flies sort of crawling all over the jar, which I think is really cool. So, Insect Koan. Often I think of Siddhartha Gautam meditating in the jungle among the creatures short and tall, noble and ignoble, elephants, gazelles, mynas, inexhaustible flies. Paintings never show the enlightened one frowning as tiny sentient beings swarm his lips, eyes, nose, nor do statues lift bronze fingers to brush off gnats buzzing about the awakening. In the old books are stories of rishis so sincere that neither snake nor tiger bite deterred their devotions. But my practice crawls up my skin and twitches and tickles, skitters along the surface. Makes me wonder if these are my ancestors, come to encourage me as relations often do in the most inconvenient of ways. Everything has a skin. This cushion, with its 1,000 stitches, stones and their history of water, the smallest flea, its translucent blue-black wing. But isn't the nasturtium agitated by the hummingbird's slurs? Doesn't the pond resent the wind brushing ripples into the portrait of mountains and clouds and shadows of mountains and clouds that it has been painting all morning? How did the Buddha learn to say to the she-mosquito, "You, with your fertile thirst, come to me and drink"? I appreciate very much the meditation on equanimity, which is really hard to come by these days. Even a couple of minutes of reading the news destroys it, at least for me. And I think that, sometimes I really struggle with the place of rage in our lives and in our practice. So I would like to share two pieces about rage. One is has the title, I am broken by the revolt inside me. Sorry, I just have to find it again. As Kim said, although we have been doing Zoom for many months, it's still somehow new every time. So maybe it's beginner's mind at work. The title of this poem is called I'm Broken by the Revolt Exploding Inside Me, which is a line from writing by Namdeo Dasal. And Namdeo Dasal was a poet and the founder of the Dalit Panthers, which was a movement in India modeled on the Black Panthers for the rights of Dalit and untouchable people. And so this is the line that that I begin this poem with, and I am thinking very much today of the life and the spirit of Makia Bryant, who is now an ancestor or on her way to being an ancestor. Your rage is pomegranates spilling open on ice, is the flute's silver seam, is the volcano spitting rivulets of fire to wash clean these corrupt lands. Your rage is solidarity before, after, and during the hashtag. Your rage is the angel of karma before, after, and during the video. Your rage throbs tight in your chest against symbologies of sticks and stones and chokes that break ligament and bone. Your rage is the fulcrum of your desire, chimera busting out of cages, heart sparks flying. Your rage gets shit done, and it is no joke. Your rage is the gold truth of sunrise, what you sit with long enough to dissolve your fear. Your rage checkmates your compromise. Your rage focuses heat like a magnifying glass and bursts into flame. Your rage is a cool blue spotlight circling the empty stage. Your rage is the dog who won't lie down for the wrong master, fierce hen who won't be moved till her brood is safely hatched, moth who unbinds his cocoon and lifts his body to the moon. Your rage is a lesson, and you learn it as you breathe. Your rage is this holy sword slicing through stone walls. Your rage is a sentence that says what it must, full stop. Your rage is our dream of a sweeter, brighter world. Your rage is this oar treading the sea to steer this ship, this gorgeous, fucking hot mess, goddamn revolution. So that's one sensation that I have about rage and the clarity of it. And I'll share another poem, which is also about rage, but it's about rage in the context of equanimity and of the four divine abodes or the limitless abodes that we practice with. And this poem I wrote at Tassajara Zen Center during a week-long people of color retreat there. Abode. In the house of love, save the best room for rage. Give it the softest, warmest blankets, sweet, endless light of the plains, a stack of dishes to break. Tell it to make itself at home. It will anyway. Let it roam through the dungeons where compassion wrestles suffering into chains. Let it mess up the kitchen where sympathetic joy is whipping up confections and spaghettis for all beings. Let it piss in the pots where equanimity and generosity are scrubbing daily on their knees. Let it whirl through the study, ruffling the rondos that loving kindness composes each dawn. Notice rage, notice where it tells the truth and when it lies. Honor it like a divine guest, or your beloved soft-hearted child, the one who will not let you rest until you have made room in your abode in your home for one more stray cat, one more bastard child or thought, unwanted, with nowhere to take refuge. And so I think that I would like to close tonight by saying that I used to practice mainly at San Francisco Zen Center when I lived in the city from about 2001 to 2009. I lived in San Francisco, and but during that time I really loved also coming to San Francisco Buddhist Center for the POC Sanghas with Viveka and other folks, and I'm thinking of your beautiful meditation room, and it's really an honor to be in this meditative Zoom with all of you. And so I'll just close with a very short poem that is called Prophecy. Prophecy. Someday we will meet again and breathe the same air. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Minal. Much beauty and poignancy there. Okay. So next we have two remarkable people from our Missoula Sangha. That's Marta and Tim. They have been interested in finding sustainable projects and missions for the past 20 years of their lives. They have focused on creating their own house with a ground source radiant floor heat, solar panels, and root cellar to store the local vegetables, and gardening space, to name a few things. They're now starting all over to do the same with their previous house, which was built in 1940. One of Marta and Tim's passions is supporting local food. In 2015, they joined forces with a young local vegetable farmer who lacked land to farm on. They were able to purchase 15 acres of land with decent soil, no rocks, in the Bitterroot Valley. The land had been used for alfalfa, hay, and sugar beet farming and had irrigation ditch for water access, but no other infrastructure, no power, no roads, no buildings, no irrigation. So began a 6-year adventure of helping farmers, and there are now 3 who work together. A successful organic regenerative vegetable farm. So began a 6-year adventure of helping the farmers, and there are now 3 of them who work together to create a successful organic regenerative vegetable farm that supplies hundreds of people with amazing local food. They would love to share a few tidbits with you on this amazing but challenging adventure. So Marta and Tim, take it away.
It's so nice to be invited to share our short little farm story. The story is actually really long, complicated, and full of drama, but we're going to just say it real short, positive parts. Protecting farmland and keeping food as local as possible has been an ongoing passion for both Tim and I. We had been getting our CSA, which stands for Community Supported Agriculture, for 2 years from a young 20-something farmer named Max. In these 2 years, we had watched Max, the farmer, lose his leased land twice after preparing soil and erecting fences on the land that he had lost. So in 2015, we asked Max if he would be interested in looking for local farmland with us. This land would be for him to farm on, and he was quite excited to join us in this search. We found 15 acres on Craigslist, just 33 miles south of Missoula, with good soil and some irrigation canal water access. This land had been used for sugar beet farming and alfalfa hay farming in the past.
What this farmland did not have was any infrastructure. There was no power, no buildings, no road. It was really a muddy mess when it rained. There was no irrigation. So over the past 6 years, Marta and I have been working hard, helping the farmers get those things in place. We first helped them put in an irrigation system throughout the whole growing area, which was kind of stressful, but we got it done, and it continues to work quite well today. Then we worked on erecting their first greenhouse, then brought in a shipping container and converted it into a tiny house for 2 of the farmers to live in. After that came the most important infrastructure that helped improve the whole farm operation. And that's what we call the barn. It's a 30 by 60 foot wash station, and then also includes an area for a large refrigeration room. The past year, we were able to help the farmers increase the value of their tomatoes by canning 350 jars of tomato sauce to sell. Almost all the ingredients, the garlic, the onions, tomatoes, basil, carrots, parsley, were grown on the farm. Meanwhile, Max had 2 other full-time farmers join him, Katie and Barrett, who help him. Max has also been a real talent for applying and getting grants and loans to help pay for a lot of the things. We helped him fund a few things at first, but actually got paid back for a lot of it. Now, entering their 6th year of farming, the farmers fund everything themselves and are making a decent living. The 3 farmers, but it's hard work. The 3 farmers seem pleased and continue to have big plans for the future of this farm.
Thanks for showing those pictures. Max, Katie, and Barrett have shown amazing skill in producing a large variety of vegetables for hundreds of local people. They practice organic farming and use the regenerative practices of cover crops, rotating crops, drip irrigation. They acquire local leaves from a close-by town to augment the soil, and 32 solar panels on the top of the shipping container. I think she showed you a picture of that. They have cornered the winter market CSAs as they have learned how to produce lots of varieties of fresh greens all through the winter that many folks in the town of Missoula have come to appreciate. They do this without heating the greenhouses. We could say so much more about the challenges and successes of this farm, but that could take a few hours. We'd like to just close at that, and thank you for hearing our story.
We're honored to be a part of this pretty special evening. Thanks.
Yes.
Thank you, Tim and Marta. I have to say, I have a special warm spot in my heart for these 2 because they taught me a way to grow vegetables in a tub that self-water. And I've been growing lots of stuff in them. So that's been fantastic. So next, we are going to have Christine talk with us and share with us some of the things that she's been doing. She's of Celtic origin, currently living in the unceded lands of the Coast Salish people on the west coast of the so-called Canada. Her spiritual practice from a young age has been guided by her concern for the health and well-being of Mother Earth and all her relations. Since discovering tree rattan in 2010, while living in Sheffield, England, Christine has been an organizer for the Buddhist Action Month, for her home Sanghas, and for the UK-wide network of Buddhist organizations. Last August, she occupied an aerial platform suspended between trees for 5 days as part of the movement to stop construction of the Trans Mountain Expansion Pipeline. She's a Mitra training for ordination with the Vancouver Buddhist Center and coordinates an interfaith prayer circle direct action group. So Christine, welcome.
Thanks, Donna Maya. It's so great to be here. I forgot that bio basically said everything. So I'm just really grateful to be here with you all. It's such a treat. And thank you so much to the Green Sangha for organizing this and getting everyone together. I do want to just express my gratitude to the sun and the sky and the land and the waters and all the forms of life that are expressed by Mother Earth. So all my relations. Just acknowledging as well that I do live on the unceded Coast Salish territories, and I'm very grateful for the stewardship that the First Nations have showed over since the time immemorial. And yeah, that we still have the knowledge and the ceremonies and the worldviews that are such good medicine for us. I do find there's a beautiful segue between Buddhism and indigenous wisdom worldviews. So yeah, 7 minutes. As Tim and Marta were saying, there's not much you can say in 7 minutes. But if my intro can say everything, then I can just add a little bit. So yeah, I'm really grateful to be invited as well to just share some of my experiences in engaged Buddhism, whether I believe in my opinion, any practicing Buddhist is an engaged Buddhist, but it is true that my Dharma practice in my life of late is quite engaged. So yeah, just wanting to say that these stories are reflections from the front line, blocking a tar sands expansion pipeline. And so it's pretty heavy topic, rife with violence, corporate bullying, police state, racism, genocide, ecocide. So I just want to say right from the start, I invite you to drop any anxiety you may have around this topic and simply listen. More crucially, I invite you to listen in a way that's free from projection and from the niggling sense that, oh, I should be doing more, oh, I should be doing less, or whatever. So it may be true. We can always do more, less, or better. But I'm sharing the stories that have manifest out of the bundle of conditions and habits that is me, this form. And your stories will look different from mine. And tonight's been a beautiful expression of that already. So yeah, actually, I've always had eco-anxiety, and arriving at Triratna was the first time in my life that I experienced a soothing of that anxiety. And that was encountering the Dharma Dhatu, this realm, the Dharma realm, this sphere where suddenly I was able to relax and realize, well, I don't know how everything is supposed to go. And, you know, I've studied environmental science, I worked in biology, I've got a good sense that things are not right. I think everyone in the world knows that at this point. But at the end of the day, I don't know how it's meant to go. Practice ethics, practice the Dharma, work with that. So when I came back to Vancouver in 2010, after over 10 years in Europe and the UK, you know, I was really excited by the career opportunities here, but I was actually super stoked to be at the terminus of the Trans Mountain Expansion Pipeline. I really felt very strongly that I could not allow this to go forward over my dead body, which, you know, I'm grateful to friends like Ari Drishti, who would say, your body is a lot more worthwhile alive than dead. So I do take the grain of salt there. And so in 2010, the pandemic actually presented a great opportunity to really get involved. And that was through that tree sit that Donna Maya mentioned. So that's where the story builds traction. So sort of a Dharma warrior notion. So I'm just going to give a little glimpse of what I've been up to since August. And then I'll follow up with the small insights. And I do mean insights with a little I from these experiences, and also just some new flavors of practice that I've been really lucky to have, I feel. So occupying the portaledge was perhaps the first opportunity to really take on what I felt, and I still feel is probably one of the strongest takeaways, is this sense of truly playing around with the lakshana of anatta, of no fixed self. And it's quite a big truth to engage with. But at the end of the day, when I made that decision to go up and live in a tree, well, actually on a portaledge, you know, the size of a coffin, as they say, suspended between trees, wobbling in the wind and what have you, a very difficult and confined situation, completely roped in at all times. Oh yeah, here's some pictures. So we've been protecting this forest. This is one of 3 tree houses that you see. That's actually the Hilton. And I was in a suspended portaledge. And the decision that I made to go up there was, I wanted to make sure that I made that decision based on my body and not my mind, certainly not my ego. So I was really grateful to consult with some of my order member friends like Upakaran and Satyavasini and Vimalasara, and just really kind of think it through. You know, I actually have never climbed before, and here I had to ascend up a rope suspended from another rope. So it was a really great practice in listening to my body and really letting the ego out of the picture, like intentionally blocking it out of that decision. Another really interesting expression of this realization of no fixed self has been, perhaps you've heard this before as well, that you know, land defenders, water protectors can be seen as expressions of Mother Earth actually protecting herself. And I find that quite a beautiful evocation. And it really, you know, especially because we're working so closely with Indigenous allies in this situation, protecting this forest and these trees and all the life, you know, this really kind of animated view of the natural world as something that is, you know, totally interconnected, and to really kind of drop my human ego and just become a bit more of an animal. And more importantly, to really feel like part of this universal connected expression of life that doesn't actually have a self. There is no separation. So that's pretty powerful. And then of course, the notion of selfless generosity, you know, kind of preventing fossil fuel expansion, especially the tar sands, you know, by stopping this pipeline and reducing all the stuff that comes with it. That's actually for the benefit of future generations. There will be no thank you cards to be expected. Like, this is not anything to expect anything in return. Even protecting the habitat from the fish and all the nesting birds, there's nothing to be expected in return. This is our current tree sit, which has since been upgraded. There's a sun deck, and yeah, it's quite a beautiful spot. Yeah, so I guess in my final minute, so no fixed self was quite a big theme. I've also relied on the 4 powers, which are the power of Dharma Chanda, the thirst for higher states. So actually seeing the opportunities. So this is a photo that I took from the portaledge. And so you can imagine the potential for fear to arise, especially at night. It gets dark, you're in the woods. So I would evoke Amoga City and really, you know, use the mantra, do whatever, like really just play around with the Dharma, but also feel the effects of it. So Dharma Chanda, I really consider one of my superpowers. Well, it's not mine, of course. Skillful pride is another one. So considering that I am in the lineage of the Buddha, I think that's day 1. It's pretty sleepy. The 3rd power is joy. This is our prayer circle. It's physically distanced, as you'll see. And the 4th power is rest and letting go. And of course, that's really important to kind of remain nourished and resourced. So I'll just close by circling back to gratitude. I'm really grateful to be together this evening for the opportunity to practice the Dharma, to practice land protection without fear of serious oppression or murder, because that happens in many places. Much gratitude for our ancestors. You know, we are on the shoulders of generations who have done their best to leave the world in a better state. And also gratitude for our innate goodness and our capacity for change. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. That was wonderful to hear about what you've been up to, and props to you for sitting up in that tree for 5 days. That's something not many of us could do. So now we're going to have some delicious poems by MJ Moore, who will read to us.
Well, actually, Donna Maya, I'll be reading the poem. But
you're reading the poem. Okay. A little confusion about who's doing what, but okay.
So as a member of the San Francisco Buddhist Center Green Sangha, I want to thank all of you for attending tonight and helping us to raise money for the Rainforest Foundation. especially those of you who are in other time zones. Thank you so much. I want to read a very short poem by the great contemporary American poet Mary Oliver. She passed away recently in 2019. She had a very strong connection to nature and the earth, and this is reflected in her poetry. So as I read this poem, I would like you to close your eyes. And I would like you to think of your connection to Mother Earth. And think of her as a loving parent, someone who is life-giving, nourishing, and protects us. And as a child of a loving parent, we want to honor and protect her. So in honor of the rainforest, I'm reading the poem Sleeping in the Forest. I thought the earth remembered me. She took me back so tenderly, arranging her dark skirts, her pockets full of lichens and seeds. I slept as never before, a stone on the riverbed, nothing between me and the white fire of the stars, but my thoughts, and they floated, light as moths, among the branches of the perfect trees. All night I heard the small kingdoms breathing around me, the insects and the birds who do their work in the darkness. All night I rose and fell as if water grappling with the luminous doom. By morning, I had vanished at least a dozen times into something better. So once again, I want to thank all of you for being here, helping us to raise money for the Rainforest Foundation. And now I'm going to turn it over to Mary Wagner, who, as one of the members, has been wonderful in finding the wonderful organization, the Rainforest Foundation. And she did a tremendous amount of work, and we're very grateful to her. So Mary, I turn it over to you.
Thank you, John. Wow, that poem really choked me up. Because John totally cued me, I'm going to put it in again. Oh, sorry, I need to change the view so I can see people. Okay, much better. So I'm going to do a couple of announcements, which are, I want to let people know about Earth Day, that we will be doing, there's a tree ratna. There's several meditations happening online. You can check out the website. And I know Paramananda is doing one, although I think it's in the middle of the night, so you might need to catch the recording. And then on Saturday, there's a big event at Lake Merritt. It's a Earth-related event, and they asked the Green Sangha to do an opening meditation for them. And we are super grateful to have Viveka leading it. And I'm just going to use her words because they're perfect. She described it as a meditation to come into open-hearted presence and wish for well-being for all forms of life. And I will, at the end, put the link to that day in the chat. And now, just in closing, I just want to circle back and just talk about the Rainforest and the Rainforest Foundation again. Thank you so much for such a beautiful evening and just all the heart that was brought here. And yeah, Thich Nhat Hanh, who's a beloved Buddhist teacher, said that we need to change our way of thinking and seeing things, that we need to realize that the earth is not just our environment, it's not something outside of us, but that we are the earth. And even though it's far-flung, we chose the rainforest because we really recognized our interconnection with it, that the threat for deforestation threatens 20% of the Earth's oxygen, 2 billion tons of carbon it absorbs every year. And we chose the Rainforest Foundation because of their focus to support people, the people whose home is the rainforest. And I want to end tonight just on the words of someone who lives in the rainforest, and then just take you briefly to the rainforest. And this is a Waorni woman who lives in the rainforest, and this is how she describes the forest. Thousands and thousands of years of love for this forest. Because we have listened, learned, and defended the forest, she has given us everything: water, clean air, nourishment, shelter, medicines, happiness, meaning. And you are taking all this away, not just from us, but from everyone on the planet and from future generations. And so I want to close on something else that Thich Nhat Hanh said, was that only when we've truly fallen back in love with the earth will our actions spring from this love and the insight of our interconnectedness. And so now we're going to just visit the rainforest in Guyana. And this is a place where the Rainforest Foundation is fighting to help Indigenous people gain title to their lands. And I hope it's going to magically appear. Padmatara, is it? Uh-oh, are they gone? Okay, I think I'm going to make it
Sorry,
magic.
I'm here. Sorry,
Okay.
I wasn't quite ready. I thought it was at the end, but this
Okay.
is good. No, that's not it. Oops. Sorry. Give me a sec.
You're doing great. And just for tired people, it's only a little over a minute long.
Oops.
Baba ya ubule marope, Baba ya ubule marope, Baba ya ubule marope, Baba ya ubule marope. Olivina bay, Magwina bay, Olivina bay, Magwina bay, Baba ya ubule marope. Baba ya ubule marope, Baba ya ubule marope, Baba ya ubule marope. Olivina bay, Kamangwina bay, Olivina bay, Kamangwina bay, Baba ya ugone garope, Baba ya ugone garope. Baba ya ugone garope, Baba ya ugone garope. Olivina bay, Kamangwina bay, Olivina bay, Kamangwina bay, Baba ya ugone garope, Baba ya ugone garope.
Thank you. Thank you for your presence tonight. Thank you for anything you might donate. And if it's not a good time for that, please just spread the word or spread love into the world. We really hope to give this fundraiser as a way of loving the rainforest and the people that live there, and maybe falling in love with the earth again. Thank you.
Okay, so we have one last thing that we would like to do. It's also quite short, which is to transfer the merit of all the practice we've done tonight. I want to especially thank all the rest of the Green Sangha team, the Green Sangha team, that we've had a really wondrous time working together to put this on. Yeah. Can you roll that up a little bit so we can see it? So what we're going to do is I'm going to lead it, but we're going to do it in unison. And so since everyone else is is on mute, it won't be too confusing with lots of voices cutting in and out. So just for a very brief 30 seconds or so, let's just first sit and absorb what we've heard tonight, the beauty and the poignancy of the work that we are all engaged in whatever way we are engaging in it. And feel the gratitude that arises when we can feel at one with everyone, all beings, the earth. Transference of merit in unison. Our prayer that any goodness generated here be extended out into the world. May all places be held sacred. May all beings be cherished. May all injustices of oppression and devaluation be fully righted, remedied, and healed. May all wounds to forests, rivers, deserts, oceans, all wounds to Mother Earth be lovingly restored to bountiful health. May all beings everywhere delight in whale song, bird song, and blue sky. May all beings abide in peace and well-being, awaken and be free. Thank you so much, everyone, to all the people who contributed tonight. And may you all be well and have a really good night's sleep. All right, we out.
Thank you, all of you. That was beautiful.